You're welcome to another interesting edition of the Economy and Politics Show, where we bring you key socioeconomic developments as it affects the household. This edition will look at the latest report from the stable of Proshare, Nigeria's leading financial information hub, and we're examining the anatomy of crude oil theft in Nigeria, understanding the graft, impact, and implications. And my guest is Mr. Tosin Ige, an energy analyst with Proshare. Tosin, it's nice to have you on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And it's great that I was able to bring you for the first time to the studio.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Looking
forward to a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
To all our viewers, let's give you some of the key wrap-up stories from last week. The federal government suspended the proposed 5% excise duty on the telecommunications sector. Minister for the Digital Economy, Issa Ali Pantami, disclosed this in Abuja. The information and communications technology sector remains one of the key drivers of Nigeria's gross domestic product, with an 18% plus growth recorded in second quarter 2022. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the value-added tax on Nigeria grew by 17.2% in second quarter 2022 to 600.82 billion naira. According to the Guardian newspapers, Nigeria earned 1.19 trillion naira in VAT from January to June, the first 6 months of the year. Also last week, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries agreed to commence a 100,000 barrels per day oil supply cut from next month, October 2022. Those are some of the key stories from last week. If you're joining us, it's the Economy and Politics Show, and our conversation is on the latest report from the stable of Proshare. It is examining the anatomy of crude oil theft in Nigeria, understanding the graft, impacts, and implications. And my guest is Mr. Tosin Ige. And thank you for being part of this conversation once again.
Thank you for having me once again.
Now, this report, of course, has elicited a lot of interest at the promotions. The build-up has been very interesting. But let's first begin with the state of the global oil and gas industry and, of course, the emerging threats. Because, I mean, from what we've seen beginning of this year, the Russia-Ukraine war has created a lot of concerns of energy security. We've also seen the fact that our country, an oil petroleum exporting country, despite the fact that there's a favorable crude oil price regime, has not been able to benefit because of what this report is discussing, crude oil theft. And also we're seeing major oil and gas companies transit to energy, from fossil fuels to the energy transition agenda. But just tell us, because you're the expert here, what are the developments in the industry and, of course, the emerging threats?
All right. Thank you for that. And I think it's good to actually start on the global scene. Yeah. As a report actually use an inverted pyramid. So we started on looking at the state of things, the state of play of the industry from the global scene. And of course, we narrowed it down to Nigeria, which is the country of interest, our country. So when we look at the global economy in terms of the oil and gas at this period, it's interesting to know that we're just coming back from, you remember, 2020, we had that pandemic, and of course, 2021. Following that trend, there has been that recovery in demand. And of course, we've seen that in oil prices. You know, in 2021, we recorded about oil prices average around 71, thereabouts, dollar per barrel to signal what it was. You know, we had that low figure.
Had a rock bottom experience
in 2020 because of the pandemic. So by and large, that has been the trend of oil industry in terms of demand. In terms of supply too, the major producers have also been doing things in that instance to match up with the supply. Talking about some of those major producers, we have like the right of OPEC being a cartel. That seems to be the producer that comes to mind when you're talking about. But of course, there's US there and other producers like Canada and the rest of them. In fact, even in Africa, we have the likes of people that just discovered oil, so they are also becoming a player in that industry now. But really, if you look at the trend of demand and supply, what is there are imbalance. Let me just put it that way. In terms of demand and supply now, the demand seems to be growing at the rate that supply is not matching up with the with the demand. And of course, it's understandable given that a major threat to the industry now is the energy transition that is being advocated
by
for
the major oil and gas companies.
By majorly by the climate activists, those environmental,
the Paris Accord and all the further developments.
You remember even at the COP26 last year, there was that commitment to do away with fossil fuel, and of course that has led to a situation of underinvestment in the sector over time, and so it's feeding into what we're seeing now, that we're having that imbalance in the market in terms of demand and supply. So that seems to be a major threat to the industry, but it also bettered another factor, which is the finance. You know, Africa, historically, we have always been depending on these developed nations for our financing. And of course, so the fact that they are trying to do away with fossil fuel means that they will not be interested in financing
projects
oil and gas,
fossil fuels.
And of course, you know, even for now, Nigeria has so much, over 20 projects in terms of oil and gas. So where do we get the finance for those projects? So it's a major threat on the global scene. So, but in terms of what the report also deal with, talking about the oil theft, is in most countries is not really a major issue, but in some other country it is a major issue. And I must say, Nigeria top the list of countries where oil theft is a major issue. But we have the rest of the country like Mexico, Iraq, even Russia. We have them on the list of those who had reports of oil theft, significant figures. So
significant figures too.
Yeah, that's the state.
Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Of course, crude oil theft affecting our revenue, and of course, majorly even the foreign exchange reserves and inflows. But let's look at the objective of this report, because when you set out to do any report, it always has this objective. So, what was the major objective behind this report?
Yes, I think. We at Proshare, the way our reports are always, if you have been following our reports, really,
definitely following back to back,
you know that we have annual reports, and of course we have special reports. So this is one of the special reports that we have, and of course we came about this report because of the fiscal state of our nation now. You remember, you just mentioned how it is affecting our fiscal position now. So really, it has become a national emergency, and that's why we set out as an organization, like as a watch dog for the economy. We set out to also contribute first to the national discourse, because it's an issue, as I said, in national emergency. And again, we also try to profile where all the interventions, why have they not been working, and of course, provide an objective and a data-driven perspective on how best to think we can address this issue beyond the noise, really, because what we are seeing out there is here and there, everybody's talking about it. So, but we want to go beyond the noise to actually look at the issue, and because we understand that in understanding the issue, you understand the major factor that are actually causing it. So, and by then you'll be able to assess the solution in that instance.
I mean, you just said it's a conversation across board, but for me, two things even stood out. I mean, when the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission said that we are losing $1.19 billion monthly. And then, of course, the Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Mr. Chimpesieva, said we're losing 400,000 barrels per day. That is really significant. And that is every reason why a report like this is critical for everyone to engage on. But what are the key major findings, I mean, from this report, and highlighting the impact of this on our economic landscape?
The report, I must say, is quite comprehensive, and of course, it took almost a year because we have been on it, and of course, trying to, when we set out to write reports in Proshare, we don't just sit in the office and just write for writing's sake. We engage operators, the regulators, the market, everyone that all the stakeholders in that particular industry, and of course we are able to come out with this comprehensive report. But in terms of the findings of the report, it's quite interesting that first, because we are a data-driven organization, we find out that even in terms of the oil theft issue, data is a problem.
Yeah.
So that's why, you quoted now the NUPRC saying this figure, and of course, sometimes you hear another
figure again.
Agency or the operator giving another figure. Yeah. So it's really dicey in that situation coming up with. And so, but of course, we used an approach called scenario. We're able to do a scenario analysis, and of course, we place it that at the bottom, at the minimum, this is what we're losing, and that's around $150,000 barrel per day, and of course, we put the upper band as 400,000 barrel per day, because I say that we are not able to justify beyond 400,000 barrel that's what we're losing. And of course, as I said, we don't just quote figures. You must substantiate
those figures.
So we understand that that's at the maximum, at the extreme, then that's what we are losing. And so we're able to put all of those in perspective, what it amounts to on a daily basis, what it amounts to using on an annual basis, using the average.
That's very methodical.
Using the average oil price for the year, and of course the exchange rate. We're able to put all of it in perspective. I think we're looking at, our figures suggest that we're losing around 16 billion annually to oil theft, and that's quite significant. We find out to be within the range of 30 to 40% of our external reserves, so which is quite significant.
Can imagine that is part of the reason why we're having this whole challenge in foreign exchange management.
In fact, when the CBN governor Emefiele talked about the fact that is one of the reasons why our naira is being affected. We really, it's a factor. Really, when you consider what we're losing, that in terms of one of those things our report look at, it says that when you look at the maritime space, our maritime space is very busy, especially because we turn out lots of crude. But of course, when you now look
and
at
an interesting part we'll still discuss in the course of this around the maritime.
Very and so oil theft is affecting it. So we're not having so much trade in that instance. And of course, you know what it will have on the exchange rate.
I like the data-driven approach. In Proshare, in God we trust, every other thing is data.
Data
is very key. So let's look at the existing interventions by regulators and I mean key operators in the industry. I know one of the major oil and gas companies raised concerns around this. They even said they want to use drones also to even monitor on their own part. But what are your assessment from this report in terms of the interventions of regulators? And
as I said, we engage some of these regulators directly, indirectly, and we actually find out that they are doing. Let me commend them that they are doing things in that instance. In fact, from the NUPRC even to the major operator, the NNPC, they are doing things in that instance. In fact, let me start by saying the PIA itself is an attempt to resolve all the issues, which include the oil theft issue, and because it makes provision for an host community, and it's one of the issues that
protecting their community, their interest and assets, because you don't protect it, how are you going to have operations? So
that's PIA is the passage itself is a way of actually dealing with the issue. So I would commend the president for actually assenting to that particular bill in 20 years coming. So it's one of the interventions that we see. But we at Proshare, we've been assessing this PIA on and on in our analyst note, and we've been saying that we're dragging the implementation really. So if you are having one of the challenge oil theft that is becoming a national issue, is affecting basically all area of the economy. In fact, we have some infographics that actually describe the state of how it is affecting.
When it says an anatomy, definitely it's going to show the linkages and all the challenges.
We go around to how it is affecting all of these issues. So in that instance, we have it to be affecting all the economy. So really, we need to fast track the implementation of this PIA.
It's been like a drag, it's like being on a pause or something. It needs to really be fast tracked.
It's really dragging on, and we think by resolving it in time, full implementation, it will help some of this issue. So that's for the PIA. And in another instance, the NUPRC also talk about engaging with, in the report, it's detailed there actually, that how the NUPRC is engaging stakeholders, engaging the company, even engaging other relevant
players in the ecosystem.
Regulator, yes, other relevant regulator in that instance. But another instance, we also question some things, some interventions, as we said. That section talked about is actually weighing the intervention. So we question some intervention. The likes
it's good to question.
Yeah, the likes of the recent contract renewal for Tumpolo. We didn't understand how that is meant to solve the issue, really, because we feel it will create a cobral effect. Given that, I don't want to quote, there's this old proverb in Yoruba that says, I won't want to quote it, but it said, you can't send, it normally send, it says that you can, it is the son of fire that you send to fire. But in this instance, we feel it's not ideal, really, because the effect will be too devastating for us as a nation, because we've seen the host communities, some host communities saying, no, it's not our person. Why are you giving it to him? So
you're saying it should be a holistic approach for the host community,
for the host community,
having a system whereby they
yes, we really, the report actually details some interventions that we feel this will be viable, more efficient, and of course more effective in that instance. But we just, as I said, we actually weigh the interventions of the current interventions, and where they have done well, we really commend them. But where we feel it's still lacking, we also highlighted it in the report, because we talked about the fact that the NNPC now recently, they launched the phone app, a website
to use to address the whole
menace. To report incidents of void theft. So that's actually a good move in that instance, because, and I think I saw on their website saying they will reward people in that instance. So that incentive, that could create incentive for some people to report incidents of theft. So we weigh that all of those interventions, and on the average, you can see the regulator have done well in some of those interventions. I think recently, so let me add this, we also weigh the recent move that we see that even in terms of technology, aside that website that we talked about that NNPRC have launched, we understand that they also now have a command assessment center.
Okay, that's a good
command, the command control center where they monitor all of the oil and gas infrastructure across the country. So, as I said, the report is quite comprehensive.
This is really interesting, and it shows why this report has come at this point to further bring the discourse in a very strategic way. And this leads us to another part which I would like us to really look at, the emerging solutions that the report has brought, because one of the most important things, and which of course Proshare has always done, is that we don't just intervene in financial market and economic activities and reports, but you bring solutions. You can't add to the challenges. You have to bring solutions. So what are the emerging solutions that this report brings that will really once again provide an insight to how we can really address this menace?
Okay, thank you for that also. And in terms of the emerging solution from the report, really, the report made a number of suggestions, and the major one really is that case for maritime, National Maritime Strategy.
Okay, really. National Maritime Strategy.
But aside that, I'll come back to that. Aside that, we also feel that even the technology we are still deploying in terms of trying to curb all of this issue of void theft is still rather static than dynamic.
So we need to be more innovative, dynamic, and sophisticated, because someone put on the on social media how UAE and even Saudi Arabia detect things like this.
Yes, we have that model of the report also captured the Saudi Arabia model. So that's why I said the report is quite comprehensive. And but of course it's straight to the point, but it's comprehensive, covering every aspect. So in terms of that technology, we feel we need more dynamic technological innovations in that instance, so that we have like the video surveillance, the rest of them, so all those nodal sensor, all of those things. So we need it really, and those are for that thing. So, but our projection is that we shouldn't use that in isolation. So as much as you are doing that, let's also put some other thing in place. Like we said now, the National Maritime Strategies, let's put that in place. And of course, in one of our engagements, as I said, we looked at something like, okay, this solution, and we also judge it by those who have been saying it, and we see that it's effective. One of it is the instance of not having too long or too stretchy pipeline.
Yeah.
Really, the longer the pipeline, the more susceptible it is to
attack
theft,
and all that.
to attack, yes, because, I think on some of the last reports, the NPC was quoting figures of having over 100 illegal tapping points across some of these pipeline.
Yeah.
In fact, some of them have, since June, I think like the TMP has been on shutdown since mid-June because it's a long stretch pipeline.
So that means we have to even review all these contracts around pipelines.
Yes, so it's a long stretch pipeline. So because of that, we'll be having that attack. So, but one thing we looked at it that, okay, what if we have some of these modular refineries close to the well, not having this extended pipeline? I will see, and we actually see that some operators have started in that instance. I don't know if it is good to mention it, but I think we look the likes of Ottoabasi have done that. Yes. I think Seplat and the rest of them, those folks are actually doing that, those kind of things. These are things we should look out for. And of course, we talked about engagement with host community. We talked about even the restructuring of the entire industry, talking about who should be on the onshore, who should be on the offshore, because they engage the host community differently. So all of those things are very important, are very detailed in the report.
So as we wrap up in just a minute, let's look at this maritime strategy, because when you look at nations like India, I mean, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, one thing that comes to my mind when you look at maritime strategy is trade. Trade is a driver of economic development. And Narendra Modi has been able to do something interesting through this maritime strategy for India. And even down in Egypt, President Abdul Fattah el-Sisi, also what he's doing in Egypt. So just give us a snippet into this maritime strategy.
Yeah, I think it's one of the major things that we are advancing as one of the measures really for this issue. It's not so much so that we think that all the theft are carried on the offshore, but no. In fact, our concentration really, we focus more on the onshore and shallow water, because we understand that those are the places that this thing happening the most. But of course, because of recent issues too, we understand that several of them too also happen even on the offshore. So we look at them, we weigh them, just to say that we looked at all across the terrain. We look at all of those issues. In fact, let me say that the figures by the regulator, when we have some of them saying that recently that the Naval, is it the Naval boss, was saying that
Chief of Naval Staff
was saying that how can this move? And of course the NNPC saying yes, some of these things. We feel we examined the issue in the report, and we detailed it there that in both sides, depending on the perspective you're seeing it from, you're correct, really, because those things are done. Several of them are done on the water, Nigerian waters, and we find out some of them too are done internally. You understand? So, in fact, we draw the line of how some of these things move, either to the offshore or to the onshore. So, is detailed there. But coming back to the maritime issue that you talked about, as I said, is a major high point for us. And because we feel that, as you have said, trade is actually a major component of the maritime system. But what we have really is the naval strategy, which cannot be taken to be the maritime strategy. I like the fact that you talk about India. We also look at countries that have used the maritime strategy in that instance, that have a comprehensive maritime strategy. And India is one of them, as you have said. And so we position that to gauge it for ourselves that Nigeria is blessed with so much resources in terms of the sea, and so why can we not have this maritime strategy where it is comprehensive? It covers the security, the governance, the maritime, the blue maritime economy. Blue ocean economy. You understand? So the blue economy, we call it. So the blue economy. So in that instance, we have all of this factor. So if you are developing the naval strategy, you are only focusing on one aspect.
Yeah.
What about the blue economy, the marine economy? So let's develop holistic. And interestingly, we find out that there are so much prospect in that economy, especially now that we are currently, or we have ratified the AFCFTA.
Yeah.
It will be a massive gift for us. So in that instance, we'll be able to curb the issue of oil theft on the waterways, and of course, we'll be developing our economy again. Yeah. So not like the report is so much. So I guess it's just it will be an interesting one. So
I like this high point of the maritime strategy.
Yes.
I look forward to delving much into that.
Yes.
But we'll still talk more. Apart from this report, we'll discuss more about the oil and gas industry. Now that I have you for the first time on board, quite an interesting conversation. We'll discuss further on other developments. But thank you so much, Mr. Tosin Ige.
Yeah, thank you for
the time. Nice to have you. Energy analyst with Proshare, to discuss the latest report from Proshare, which is, of course, examining the anatomy of crude oil theft in Nigeria, understanding the graft, impact and implications. Thank you once again for the time.
Thank you for having me.
You all heard it. That's the latest report from the stable of Proshare, which is, of course, examining the challenge in Nigeria, the crude oil theft in the country, understanding the graft, the implications, and, of course, the impact it's had on our economy. And it was really nice to hear one particular area, the maritime strategy. You want to get this report, please, you can join our website to do that, and we'll display it on the screen. So that'll be all for this edition of the Economy and Politics Show. You can follow our social media platforms displayed on the screen to get further updates on this report. Visit our website, www.proshare.co, to read our latest news stories, articles, reports, and watch our videos. Also, we appreciate if you can send your views, suggestions, or questions around this latest report and our conversation today to the email displayed on the screen. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching and have a lovely day.